Filming Uncharted was genuinely terrifying at times for the actors. Rightfully so, because they wound up bruised and cut and even whacked in the face on occasion. Okay, it was mostly Tom Holland being injured. We're taking a look at times the actors probably wished they'd taken a day off.
I don't think we'll get to that. I don't think I can do that.
Number 1. Sometimes video games don't translate well to real life. During fight scenes, Tom Holland kept getting smacked in the teeth by the Sig Parvis Magna ring that was hanging around his neck.
Because when I fight,
poor Tom.
I do this, and it kept whacking me in the teeth.
To resolve this, Tom Holland went to the props master to get a rubber ring made. There's nothing worse than being beat up by your own wardrobe.
Like, it really hurt.
Whose side is that ring on anyway? Number 2. That feel when you get into the movies to be an action star and are cast as a hamburger instead. Sophia Ali found it pretty terrifying to run on the high ledges and the fountain, despite being attached to wires. She had to slip as part of the filming and slide down the car, but she fell on her hip wrong and was left with a giant bruise.
It was like this big.
What made it so awful was that she kept re-injuring it.
I looked like raw hamburger meat.
Not an image we needed in our head, thanks. Number 3. Maybe Tom Holland isn't getting old just yet. He wound up with really bad tendonitis in his hamstring.
Which isn't a very cool injury, that's just from overwork.
But it did happen during a sword fight apparently, so it's no scar, but that's pretty cool.
The only times I get hurt is when I do something wrong.
He spent 3 days recovering, but that's about all the time he had, since he had to head to Atlanta to film Spider-Man. The life of a celebrity is truly agonizing. Number 4. We'll get that high five later. Tati Gabrielle partially dislocated her shoulder during a fight scene with Tom Holland, and didn't know it until the next day. She left set and it didn't hurt at first. She assumed because of the adrenaline rush, but a couple of hours later, she found that her shoulder really hurt and she couldn't lift it.
By that night, I was in excruciating pain.
And she couldn't move or lift her shoulder at all. She came back the next day and Mark Wahlberg's doctor was on set that day, and she asked if he would take a look at her shoulder because something seemed wrong.
He's like, "Oh babe, you dislocated your shoulder."
In a strange way, she's proud of her pain.
I feel like it's like a badge now.
High five. Think she's up for one yet? Number 5. 9 out of 10 dentists don't recommend using swords like toothpicks. Tom Holland couldn't catch a break when it came to his teeth.
Mark actually hit me in the teeth with a sword.
There's a moment where the two stand back to back and are supposed to hit a couple of guys with swords. But as Mark did his backswing, he accidentally clipped Tom in the teeth. But don't worry, he didn't get him in the gums, and surprisingly, lost no teeth in the process.
It was fine. I mean, it wasn't like he cut me or anything.
Smile, you're on camera.
Next time, don't get in the way of my sword.
Number 6. That feel when you go into Papa John's for a pizza and get a knuckle sandwich instead.
The biggest injury was my ego when I got beat up by Tati over and over and over again.
She's a martial arts expert. I'm not too big of a guy to say that this girl can bust me up. The two of them really bonded on set, and she was his favorite person to work with. Mark really got off easy in this movie, as he's used to playing the action hero, but now, with age, is playing the older parts. In fact, he was originally slated to play Tom Holland's role years ago, but the project never got off the ground. We think it's pretty funny that as much as his character didn't want to get hurt in the movie, the actor himself is one of the only leads who didn't injure himself in some way. Which is present in the story, of course, as Sully is claiming to nurse old injuries. Turns out, getting old worked in Mark's favor, and he plans to do so gracefully. Number 7. Tom's stunts are smashing. In the Barcelona chase scene, Tom Holland vaulted over a railing and slid down a roof. He ended up smashing his hip into the tiles, and his whole hip was black and blue for a few weeks.
I walked away from every stunt, but I definitely limped from a few.
Tom and Sophia could start a club. Number 8. We bet Tom's got great calluses from all these stunts now. Tom and everyone involved ended up injuring themselves from hanging onto the straps during the airplane sequence.
All of us tore our hands up.
Tom also suffered from plenty of bangs, bruises, and tears due to crashing into things. Sophia agrees there was hard physical stuff. Some falls, some hits.
It was tough.
Number 9. Would you take being hit in the knees for $2 million? How about if it happened 17 times? Well, Tom was hit by a car, you guessed it, 17 times to get one shot. Of course, the car wasn't real, but the speed of the machine, or bonnet as Tom called it, moving towards him was enough to stress out his mom, who was on set that day, saying,
Do you not think they've got it already? Can't they move on?
He called the scene pretty impressive, a lot of fun, and very painful but very rewarding. And it wasn't all that dangerous because they did their due diligence to make sure the car was safe and padded. We would take being hit in the knees for $17 million after hearing that. Number 10. Tension on set was building after Wahlberg's gift was mistaken for something inappropriate. The filming of Uncharted was incredibly demanding for Tom Holland. He was going to the gym in the morning thinking, oh my god, I must have torn something in my leg. And the guys told him that he hadn't, he's just getting old. The physical tension led to an awkward moment between him and Wahlberg. The previous Calvin Klein underwear model gave his co-star a massage gun, but Tom had never seen one like it before and mistook it as something else entirely. Something a little more in the realm of pleasure than tension. Number 11. Turns out Spidey powers do come in handy sometimes. Tom had to do far more than stunt work for this movie than he had to do for any other Spider-Man movies, because there's no mask or CGI to hide behind. His action sequences in Uncharted are the biggest he's ever been a part of, saying the cuts and bruises and bangs he got from dangling off of wires and falling off of things was ridiculous. Number 12. The sticker Tom got was probably a Band-Aid. Tom didn't say how it happened, but he did bang his head pretty bad on set. But he was alright.
I got a sticker saying banged my head at work today.
What we want to know is who was walking around on set giving out these stickers. Number 13. It isn't an action movie if there isn't real danger on set, of course. Tom narrowly avoided worse injuries when he found himself holding on for dear life. He struggled in that airplane sequence because he was attached to wires but was only just holding on to the crates. So the cougar arms that were carrying the crates did different motions like rock back and forth or spin. Well, they had different speed levels. Since level 4 didn't feel all that different from level 5, Tom said,
That wasn't that much harder. Do you know what? Do level 8.
That's the moment Tom realized he'd made a terrible mistake. He suddenly found himself struggling to hold on because the faster you spin, the further you fly, and your odds of letting go and flying into a crane are pretty good. He got off lucky though, and no serious injuries were reported. Even still, we think Tom learned a valuable lesson. You don't go straight from easy mode to extreme mode, or you'll drop from 3 lives down to 0 very quickly. While Mark Wahlberg got to sit back and nurse fake injuries the whole movie, poor Tom was doing all of the heavy lifting and really pushing his body to the limits. Do you think all that pain was worth it to drag Uncharted out of the video game world and put it on the big screen? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for hanging out with us here at The Things.